Great to see you.
Good evening. Welcome. Airfix and chill. Must be Monday. So I hope you've had a good start to your week. I know you've probably been at work after a good weekend, had to go back to work and earn a few quid. Sorry about the title, folks, but I felt after recent events within my life, sudden death, and the fallout for that. And we've often joked about our stashes being huge. I thought tonight we would have a respectful conversation and discussion about what happens with your hobby after you die. And um, I I think the reality is that when you die, none of this is yours anymore. What you've got up in the attic that you've collected over tens and 20 years, decades even, your airbrushes or your paints or your equipment, sonic cutters, you know what I mean, your 3D printers, your computers, all that information on your computer. When you die, it, it's not yours. It ends up being passed on to the next of kin.
Yeah.
And I just thought, how do you, as a scale modeler and as a human, you're a father, you're a mother, or whatever. You could be a son, even. You die before your parents, which is a tragedy that no parent should bury.
No.
No parent should bury their children. That's a tragedy. But I thought, let's be proactive in, how do you set yourself and your family up so that when you're not there, what happens? You know, um, and it is in line with, for instance, there's been a death that I've known of, and the family didn't know what to do with all of this, all these model kits and collections of stuff, part works, the whole works, and they wanted to clear it all out and be gone. Unfortunately, that we were able to get there. They contacted us and said, what's it worth? And I gave them a fair value of what I believe was a fair value of the product, and I took the plastic model kits off their hands. But there's all sorts of stuff there that they're trying to sort through, and sometimes when somebody dies suddenly, the family try to cleanse the areas, so they don't get reminded. And so it kind of it has been on my mind now after having a bit of a health scare not too long ago. Um, that I've gone down the process of, in my mind, knowing that if something happens to me, there are three people that my wife that I trust, that I know my wife would trust, to say we can help you with
Yeah.
either selling kits or passing them on to good causes. And even now, I've slowly been selling off my Airfix collection, not model kits as such, but a lot of the products that I've accumulated, the gains. Even now, under here, I've been looking at this one. This is an old Airfix cheesegate, and I'll be looking through it, making sure the bits are there because somebody wants to
Cheese.
buy it off me. Things like that. So, but anyways, let's put it out there. And the reason and I know Luke was having a break from Airfix and Chill, but I really felt as somebody who's had to deal with this situation recently, I invited him on tonight. And the subject he knows quite a bit about because unfortunately one of his friends passed away, and he helped the family, which is a fortunate thing, helped the family in sorting out all those kits. So do you want to just tell your story, Luke, on how you dealt with thousands of pounds worth of model kits and equipment, etc.?
Yeah, sure. I mean, anyone that's a member of the club will know. Last year, one of our admins, Mark, died. He'd been ill for a long time, but the death was unexpected. So he knew he was going to die, but he didn't know it was going to be so quick, if that makes sense. So between our admin team, there is a gentleman's agreement, if you like, that should anything happen to any of us, the other admins will deal with it on behalf of the family. And the reason we've done that is because, and it's not to make anyone that's watching feel that their stash isn't good enough, whatever, but as an admin team, most of our stashes contain some very high-end stuff. Yeah. And as you know, Mars, when I sent you the list of Mark's stash, every single kit was a high-end kit, and every single kit had every piece of aftermarket with it. And so you're talking a lot of monetary value. And I think the danger is if it's someone, if the family are doing it themselves, for example, they're not necessarily going to be aware of how much this stuff is worth. So if you've got a 148 Great Wall Hobby A10 and you put it into Google to see how much it's worth, it's going to tell you it's worth about 70 quid.
Yeah.
New. What they don't know is that within that box, there's probably 200 quid's worth of aftermarket.
Yeah.
And so on and so on. Plus all the airbrushes, tools, paints, and all that stuff. It's a mammoth task to do. And Mark's stash wasn't, it wasn't big by stash comparisons, but what it was very high end. I think there was about between 50 and 60 kits, but it was all high end stuff. All of his airbrushes were high end airbrushes. He had full paint ranges, etc., etc., and all the other sundries that we all use when we're building. So what we did is we went down, or I drove down to Wales twice to pick up stuff, so that it was out of the house. Because you're absolutely right, Miles. His wife and his son was late teens. He wasn't a child. They don't want that stuff hanging around. They really don't, because they've got enough to deal with the death of a loved one, etc., etc. So I went and picked it all up, brought it back to my house, and then catalogued everything from every pot of paint to every kit, every bit of aftermarket. It took a while, to be fair. And then I boxed it all up. And then what we did as an admin team, we purchased one of the kits at market value. So it wasn't like, oh, we're just going to take a kit, because I know that goes on. I know that for a fact. We didn't do that. We paid market value for whatever it was, and selected other people were sent the list because we knew we could trust them. Then everything else was sent to Veteranus, which is an online, some people might know it, Facebook like auction site that deals with modeling, kits, tools, paints, everything you can imagine. And then it goes to an auction. And what they do is they take about 30%, but they deal with all the postage, all the packing, all the admin side of it. So they come and collect it. They came in a van, big van, collected everything, and then probably about a month later, they auctioned everything off. Once they got all the money in, they obviously took their 30% or whatever it was. I think it was about 30%. To cover all their costs, their postage and the admin. You know, they've got to, it's a business at the end of the day, they've got to be paid. And what they do is they then send the remaining total to a nominated person, which was me. And then that money was then forwarded on to Mark's family. And we're not talking about a small amount of money, it was thousands and thousands of pounds. But the key is, it's got to be, if you're going to go down that route, it's got to be people you trust.
Yeah.
Because sadly, people will take advantage. That's just human nature. So that's why the circle that we have that agreement in is so small. Because it's got to be people that we absolutely trust. All of our partners know which number to call to start that process rolling. Because, look behind me, this whole room and half of the double garage is full of kits, tools, paints. The last thing your loved one wants to be doing is dealing with all that.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's got to be someone you trust that he's going to do it. It's important. Yeah. It's important for the family because they've got no interest in the kits and whatever. And sorry, I forgot to mention what we did do is the kits that we bought, we built them over a period of about 6 months. So each of the admin team that bought kit, they built it. Then we sent the images to Mark's wife. Her and his son sat down, they picked their favorite. Then as a club, we got that professionally mounted in a professional display case with a plaque and everything else. And that was then gifted to Mark's wife as sort of a memento of his modeling life. So, something that she could put on display. And that's what we did. So it's something that what I do for a living, did for a living. People die. And sometimes they die very unexpectedly. I would recommend anyone over the age of 18, anyone write a will and keep it updated.
Oh, yeah. You got to have a will.
Because family, friends, loved ones, they've got enough to deal with when something awful like that happens. They don't want to be trying to guess what you wanted, whether that be what you want to do with your modeling stuff, how you want your funeral to be. They don't want to be guessing. It takes a lot of pressure off them and it allows them to deal with what they need to deal with emotionally. And it's so important. Recommend that to anyone. But that's how we did it. And I'd recommend Veteranos to anyone. They're brilliant.
I think there's some major points there, raised, Luke. I'm going to go through them, but just going through some of the comments already. My stash is itemized, Excel, and written, and written my will. So that's a good one. Hi everyone. I've chosen to donate my unmade kits to Models for Heroes. Fair play. That's a good, worthy charity to give to. I've got like 60, 80 years left in me, but Jack, what blink of an eye, mate. I look at myself now.
And think, Jack, absolutely you do. But take it from me as someone who knows that can change in the blink of an eye, mate. So
I feel that I will die before Airfix release that Saracen. Okay. It is pertinent subject given the average age of a model builder. A lot of us get back into the hobby at a later age, and we do, we do end up collecting a lot of kits. On the subject of tonight, I might make it a condition in my will that all models in my stash must be completed by all main parties in order to inherit my estate. Put it in your will, mate. Put it in your will for sure. And then also, so clean your airbrushes in case you die. Yeah, I get that. Yeah. Let's go through. I've left my stash towards the heroes in my will. Fantastic. That's a really good one. My daughter will only keep the Star Trek models. Everything else donated to my local model club. That's fantastic. We've had in our model club, we've had thousands of decals donated to us, which have ended up at IPMS in their decal bank, which was a really good addition. I have left the list of kits and value for my family. I suggest they sell it as single kits, e.g., wing that wings or flog the lot to a model shop. So John Alec there being honest, part of why I try to keep a small stash, but it's not just the stash, it's the airbrushes, the paints, the worktop that you're working on, the cameras you're filming on. There's a lot there. Rally Chiefs model shed. It's really important to have the conversation with loved ones. No point in hiding your hobby's worth. Yeah, and that's true. We do jest on, I've only paid £2 for this kit, end up biting you in the bum later on, and also you've worked hard and you've spent the money on these kits. So, if you could leave a little bit behind, then I understand that. And again, he says,
I've never really subscribed to that sort of train of thought, or I'm not telling the missus how much it costs or whatever. As long as you're not going into debt and it's your disposable income and your bills are paid, then you spend your disposable income on what you want. But make sure they know. Because if the time comes, then they're going to need to know.
Yeah, that's it. Rally Chief says again, in 2019, I was diagnosed with cancer, given a 50-50 chance. It was hard sitting my son down to go through the details, but it really has to be done. Thankfully, I pulled through, but that conversation, and I think it was supposed to be something else added to that, but I can't find it yet. But yeah, it is a conversation to have. So, for instance, there are 3 people on my list. Luke's on it now, by the way, but I've got a friend called Neil in my model club, and I've also got a chap called Paul, on my list. Luckily, my will is what we call opened. It's an opened will. So I can add stuff to my will just by writing a letter to my sister and saying, this is what's happening. So one of the things I've also got is a password in my will. So every password that I use, the main one for this computer, all the one to log into my Gmail, is all locked away in my will. And if I have to change that password, what I do is you write a letter and you date the letter and you say the new password for this account is this, and they add that to the will. So then they can go to the last date of change and see what the last password was on that account. Because if you think about it, my Facebook account, all the model logo, all the branding and everything needs a password. And also, when I die, they've got to be in control of that as well. If so it doesn't get taken on or hacked or anything like that. That there's things in place. So that, but it's only something I've been done recently. I never thought about it, but you hit 45
because people live in a digital way now, more so than we've ever done.
Yeah.
And should the worst happen, particularly if it's unexpected, then it's the people that are going to be left behind that have to sort all this out. And it's so important that they know how to access the digital part of people's lives, because otherwise it gives them a massive headache and they've got enough to deal with. My missus knows all my passwords for everything. I've got nothing to hide. I do appreciate that some people may be looking at nefarious things or whatever, and they don't want their nearest and dearest to know. My advice would be get a burner phone. If some things you're not quite disclosing, then have a standalone device to do it.
I was just going to say, or just set your search engine to delete all information after a month. You know, there's so many ways around it. You know, like I said, but like I said, I don't do, because my computer is my business. I don't fuck about on this computer. I seriously, I'm not talking about. I'm looking at porn. I'm not saying that. Is anything suspicious, I don't click, because that if somebody can hack into my computer, there's all me YouTube, me personal business, me disco websites. Yeah, it could be all taken over. So I'm so careful with this. It's got, I use a Mac anyway, so I've never had a virus, saying that, touch wood. I've never had a virus since I've had a Mac, over 20 years now. But it can happen. But I'm so careful with what I do on this computer, because, and also when I'm not doing anything on the internet, I turn the internet off. I just switch that button here, click it off, and it doesn't, so it can't access the internet. So, I don't leave it on overnight either. It's one of them sort of things. But yeah, have anybody else got anybody else have got ways about their kits? Have they got plans on what happens with their stash? John, you mentioned that you
massive stash.
Yeah, Brett, what are you going to do?
I mean,
Well, there was always a running joke with my wife that my God wouldn't take me until I built all my kits, so I was going to live to be 160.
Wow. We all believe that, though, don't we?
That's heavy.
She knew what to do with everything if something did happen. Then, unfortunately, I lost her last February.
Yeah.
And 6 months later, I got two sons that build models, and 6 months later, I lost one of them. So I got his stash. So right now, my son who builds models knows what to do with things, and a lot of it will get sold. He'll take what he wants and he'll sell the rest, and he knows people to sell them to.
Yeah.
But, my father died 3 years ago. My mom didn't know anything. So I spent 3 years teaching my wife how to manage all of our affairs.
Yeah.
When I went. And then she went before me, and I didn't learn any of her financial stuff. So you have to communicate with everybody and make sure people, you got not just the person you want, but someone backing them up.
Yeah.
Because you just don't know who's going to not be there tomorrow. Yeah. And if you have a stash like I do, it's going to take them, if they didn't know what they were doing, they'd either just throw it away or give it away.
I just I just think that it should be in your mind that you don't leave a problem. I think that's what it comes down to. That that even if they don't know much about your hobby or your stuff, there are people that they can turn to in their lowest time, if you know what I mean. They will be grieving, and you need to have people in your life that that you can trust, and that your beloved, those left behind, can trust, and make it easier. I was only thinking the other day, luckily a lot of my stash in the attic is in IKEA boxes, because I would hate having, to go up in that attic, even though it's floored out and everything. You still go up and down that ladder, and what a bitch it would be that somebody would have to go up there to box it all up, with all of her personal effects being on show. Well, this way, because they're all boxes, you can go up there. These are all the boxes, and it's not just my Airfix collection, my old 1960s boxings and baggies and everything else. Any airbrushes that I don't use anymore, broken compressors. I keep the broken compressors. They're up there as well. Because they, I've always thought I'd go back and fix them, but it's all in one corner, boxed up, labeled. So that they haven't got the worry of sorting out stuff. They know that in these boxes where it's got written Airfix, 1957 to 1963, 63 to 60. Do you know what I mean? It's all pretty much labelled up. And I do think we, when you die, who cares? I'm not going to be around. But I have a feeling that, why add to their grief by not being prepared now? And something to think about. You
do want to make sure they're prepared, because going through that is very hard, very difficult.
Hard. Yeah, it is.
It's certainly in the Western world. In other parts of the world, it's slightly different. But it's a very taboo subject, and people avoid the subject when actually it's pretty much the only inevitability that's going to happen to all of us at some point. Yeah. So why not? Maybe I look at it from a slightly different perspective. So certainly in the military, depending on what job you did and what you would be expected to do, you used to write death letters all the time. At 18, 19 years old, and they would go in a safe, and then you'd set fire to them if you came back. But if you didn't, they'd be. So it was nothing. It's something that I've grown up around as an adult, I guess. And then doing what I do now, you see death all the time on a daily basis. So it's not a taboo subject for me, because it's going to happen to everyone. So the only advice I could ever give everyone, and everyone will do it their way, is make sure your affairs are in order and someone knows what to do in that event, someone you trust. And exactly what Brett said, make sure that person has got someone they trust that can back them up. Because it's a lot to deal with. If someone's passed away, that's a lot to deal with for that individual anyway. You don't want to put all the responsibility for everything on that person, and they've got no one to go to. So it's such an important thing. And I'm very fortunate. I have people that I trust implicitly. And I would recommend anyone does that. Even if you need to go and pay a lawyer, do that.
Yeah.
And get it in order, because you just don't know.
You just don't know.
Yep.
Yeah. What about put it out there? What about your built models? Do you ever think about what you're going to be doing in with all the stuff that you've built? There's no point asking Luke because he throws his away. But what you, Zinni, have you got things in process? Or thought about these sort of things, and what will happen to your built kits? And
I am now, being in my very late 30s. I am now of a position where I do start to think about this. And just like John Alec here, he's in his late 30s. Look at him, slip of a lad. I speak to my daughter about this from time to time, but as far as a stash is concerned, in terms of personal effects, it represents a small part of the whole thing. I mean, I've got about 350 records, for example, some of which are worth quite a lot of money, but my wife knows what they are. The modeling ephemera could be cleared in half a morning, to be truthful with you. And as for the selling my kits, I'm not quite sure what I get for them. 10, 20, 50 a quid, I don't know. There are some kits that are worth 130 odd quid or something that I paid for. I've got the Qatari 132 Spitfire. I'll probably build most of these, but the point about getting someone to help you with this is probably a good idea, although I'm inclined as well towards the thought that there is a process that one goes through when one suffers a bereavement. There are stages of grief, and it may prove therapeutic to perhaps look at these things. It may generate some memories that are valuable to the bereaved person to look at these kits, because no matter how much of a solitary hobby modeling might have been, the other half has some involvement at some level with perhaps completed kits and things of this kind, you know, and therefore there could be something to be said in that. You know, I am of the age now where there are fewer days ahead than there are behind, so I do think about this from time to time. But it's the whole of it really, and actually I take a view on this from my own perspective that I'm not afraid of dying. It's going to happen at some stage, and at that stage I say to my nearest and dearest, you know, throw me in a box and chuck it on the river and it'll float away. And then you don't have to think about it anymore. But I suppose the thing I would say to people who are with other folk is that it is important to, and I think particularly of my own mother here, it is important to say all the things that you feel that you need to say, because when those people have gone, it will then be too late. Correct. And one of the things I found, particularly with my mother, was that on the night, on the day that she passed away, I recall thinking in the evening that we really had said everything.
Good.
You know, including actually, you know, I said to her on one occasion, I'll really miss you when you're gone. And she said, yeah, that's okay. But don't be silly about it, which I thought was really good. You know, it's totally practical, you know. Yes, maybe I did forget to add VAT to my stated age, but I'm going to claim the VAT back on this one.
You can do, definitely.
Yeah, I mean, there is a couple of things to say there really in conclusion. Just, you know, think about the process of letting go, you know, and allowing that person to move to the next thing and say what you need to say. But yeah, share what you know, and it's the whole of the life really. That the modeling was a part of it. It may have been a large and important part of it, but it was a part of it nevertheless. And the whole person was something far more than just that, you know.
Yeah. Just on the thing.
No, I think Zinzan put that really well. And it's very difficult to talk about what people are going to do with their stash and their paints without talking about the event that brings that around in the first place. They kind of go hand in hand, don't they? But without sounding too morbid, I've never been next to any other human being that's taken their last breath that has ever said they wanted to spend more time at work, or they wanted to spend more time on the golf course, or whatever. Without fail, every single one, and some of them are very nice people, all wish that they'd have said what they wanted to say to people that were in their lives, or they wish they'd have spent more time with family, or they wish they'd have done this, they wish they'd have done that. Well, it's too late then. Do it now. It's so important. But I think depending on your perspective will kind of dictate how you live. You know, it's a very personal thing. But for example, I don't leave the house ever without telling everyone in that house that I love them. Never. Even if I'm going to the car, I will never ever leave the house without telling them that. Because I could pull onto the main road and I could be taken out by a truck. It happens all the time. So therefore, they're never in any doubt. There's never any doubt.
I agree with Luke on that one.
I think. As I said, you know, I know it's a bit of a morbid subject, but sometimes, as I said, you know, the last few weeks made me stand up and take notice and just make sure that my affairs are in order.
Yeah.
And I think that's important. I'm just thinking then, when people are saying, "Oh, I'm going to donate my staff to Models for Heroes," well, firstly, do your loved ones know that? Secondly, how are they going to get all those kits to Models for Heroes? Have you put that into your contingency plan? Things like this. It's all well saying I'm going to leave mine to Models for Heroes, but I'm just thinking then, would they know who to contact Models for Heroes? Would Models for Heroes be prepared to drive down? I'm not saying they won't. So I'm giving suggestions out here. Devil's advocacy. Okay, Dad. Models for Heroes got the time and the money to come down to pick up the stash of your kits, and all those kits complete. I know that my kits, some of the kits upstairs, don't have decals with them, or the decals are bugged because of their age. I don't think Models for Heroes want them kits. They want kits that can be built. You know what I mean? So, you've got to think.
Veteraners come into their own because they will just literally come and collect everything. Now, I took the step with Mark's stuff to catalogue it all. But not everyone, firstly, is going to know what they're looking at. That's your first issue. So for them to keep an accurate record of it, it's hard. But what veteraners do is they go through every single box because they're putting it up for auction, and they will say parts off sprue or no decals or no instructions, whatever. So people know what they're getting. And they deal with everything. It's such a valuable. It's a business, but it's such a valuable service. It really is.
Yeah, I think that's it. Well done, Net. So I was just thinking then, would that be a case? And that's fine. But also, are the kits in order as well? It's and I say it is a charity. Ben, you're one of the younger ones here. Have you thought about this? Because I'm just wondering, with your family and the size of some of your frigates, and you know what I mean, and some of your big, storing them must be an issue for you. Get rid of it.
Storage is an issue. I mean, to be honest with the whole thing, I haven't particularly thought about it. I did have, a bit similar to you. I had a stint in hospital over Christmas, which was a bit like, maybe I should think about it. But then being, young and dumb, I then have thought about other things and not really got back to it. I mean, I probably am not in the position where I will write a will or whatever because, I don't know, it'd be left to my parents kind of and whatnot. But most people that know me know what I would want doing with them and where these things would go. Like, for example, the ships and that certain collection would go off to a museum or be offered to a museum or something. And then it would be, siphoned up for sales, if not. But I mean, the kit value and that. The problem is a bit like what was sort of said earlier, is that all my life I've said these kits are bargains and they're worth very little. So when I do die, if I'm not dead by that point, my mother will come and haunt me in the afterlife saying, can't believe you spent all this money on these kits after you said they cost nothing. So, I mean, I've not really, as I say, thought about it. It's not really for my age, and I don't think that way at present. I mean, it's a case of my parents know. I've got a couple of, like you say, close friends who know, who would be able to sort it out or whatever, or I would leave it to. But I'm generally of the attitude of not just yet. So, again, being 25. Being at 25, I'd at least to think that I have a minimum 40 more years in me. So, it's not my problem just yet.
Yeah, it is. It's good to hear other people's thoughts on this as well. What about you, Barry? You must have a few vintage classics lying under your bed there, haven't you?
Well, I'm sort of lucky, really, because my stash is actually quite small, about 30, 40 kits. Now, with the club I'm with, this has already happened when a couple of members died. The surviving relatives, they gave everything to the club for disposal. Some of it was sold off, money donated to a nominated charity. Other stuff to raise club funds, and club members got first dibs on the kits and paid the going rate for them, and others got auctioned off. As for my stuff, like I say, the club gets everything. Keep it simple.
Yeah.
Like I say, I've already donated a whole heap of built-ups. And they go for club funds, so I'm going to keep doing it.
Yeah. That's a good one, Zinzan. I like that. I'll be more concerned about Barry's Goblin Teas, mate.
That's my second one. That's the second one. That's probably worth a small fortune.
It's an alarm clock. It's a goblin alarm clock, because when the kettle goes off and starts injecting
it wakes you up.
People, it's enough to wake the bloody dead.
I know. He only gets used as an alarm clock. That one there has never made tea. The one I had before it did, and it always woke up before it went off.
Yeah, absolutely.
Have you got the very first Cadbury Smash packet, like Barry?
No. I've got some old stuff. I'm not that bad.
Whether you peel them with your metal knives.
Then we more than about 20 of your minutes. Then we smash them all to bits.
I
Those
knew you
robots
know
are worth a small bloody fortune.
Barry wrote the advert.
There's a load of young whippersnappers watching this now who won't know what you're
talking about. Exactly.
Or mash, get smash. You remember the jingle?
By Cadbury's as well, wasn't it?
Yeah,
chocolate factory making potato. Yeah, definitely. What about we talk about stash in all this, but what about all the other stuff that you have? For me, I think I've got every Airfix catalog. I've got majority of the Tamiya catalogs that I've, what my fear is that that's the stuff that's more worth to me. Is my, I've got an original first edition Airfix second edition of catalog. Then I've got the third edition, which is very rare. Those things.
It's interesting you should say that, actually, because books themselves could be worth a colossal amount of money. And there's an edition of the RAF camouflage and roundel colours and designs that was done some years ago now, between 1939 and 1945. Everybody should have a Goblin Teas made. Yes, absolutely right. Yes, it should be a punishment if you've done something really bad. What did you do, Barry?
I always wanted one because I was too idle to get out of bed to put the kettle on. I'm a little more motivated now.
I think most people think that. Back in the day, I used to mend the bloody things, but chiefly what used to go wrong was the clock motor, and that was fairly easy to put right. But quite often times you get them scaled up, and then they wouldn't work properly, and they just whistle and make a lot of noise, and nothing would happen.
I'm going to lubricate this one from time to time because it keeps you awake with the gears grinding on the inside.
Yes. You need to use don't use 3-in-1 oil.
What you say about boots?
I use silicone grease.
Yes, right. Let's get back to let's divert back to the subject, shall we? But I can't remember the name of the book, but it was an edition that was a great reference for 1939 to 1945 aircraft colours and marking placements. I tried to find a copy of the book on the internet. It's actually about £1,200 to buy one.
What?
Wow.
Seriously.
Wow.
It's worth an absolute bloody fortune. first editions of some of these things are worth a huge amount of money, you know, and quite a lot of the aircraft books, you know, that were written in the sort of 70s and 80s probably were done on quite small production runs, because let's face it, we occupy what one might perhaps describe as a niche.
It is a niche market.
In some sense. I mean, I know that in its heyday, Airfix was selling 300,000 Spitfires a year and all that kind of thing. I mean, it was a big number and all that, but it's pretty niche now. And you know, aircraft history is something that people have an abiding interest for, I think. And it, you know, even if we looked at we did a straw poll, a little vox pop of the people watching, you know, most of them would probably say, "Oh yeah, I'm somewhat interested in that." It's one of those things that you collect books because you do research, and then, you know, when you go and you move on to the next phase, as it were, there are these books left, and books like records. I think some people know what they're worth, and others perhaps don't. You know. So it's worthwhile knowing that. I mean, I have a few books, but not so many. I like books, to be honest with you, and my collection of aircraft books is not significant, but it's related closely to the sort of things that I both build and then research and write about. So, you know, I think 2 or 3 of you have seen what I do anyway, so I won't say any more about it than that.
Well, for examples in there, where you say about books and collections, I was clearing out some of my books because I'm a bit like probably other people. I collect a hell of a lot of books. I've got a whole bookcase worth. And it got to the point where the bookcase was collapsing. It's like, right, some of these needs to go because I've done the projects. I'm not going to use them. And I had this set of, I think I was, you know, I think I must have paid about a tenner for the 3 of them. For it was Luftwaffe camouflage. It was like original 1970s or 1980s books. And it had drawings and photographs you'd never get in the modern reference stuff now. And I just left it on bidding. And after 7 days, they went for £100 for all 3 of them. So it's even those things that you would look at the value of, because again, they're not necessarily modeling goods or modeling related in your stash, that they might actually hold the most value in order to sell. And as I said, these books were £100. I was absolutely shocked at how much they went.
Yeah.
I mean, I think the books also change in value as well, because Jonathan Mock's book, The Aircraft Book of Scale Modelling, was on eBay, and they were going for around £40 or £50. Okay, and a few sold for that, because I was, you know, I had one in my, I had a copy anyway, and then I found one in a second-hand bookshop for about £5, and I picked it up thinking, I'll sell this one on eBay because they're worth 40 or 50 quid. But I think that so many people saw the prices they were going for, were then looking for them. Before you knew it, when there was only 2 listed, there was then about 12 to 24 of these books listed. Then when World of Books got hold of it, that was it, £3 a go, like, you know. But at the time, they were going for around 40 or 50 quid.
Andrew Pamstan.
World of Books. They did, yeah. World of Books. Don't ever give your books to World of Books. They've destroyed the book market, bastards.
And I think
anyways,
a lot,
but yeah,
the Zinzan touched on with it being certainly now a very niche hobby. What value is relative. So what might be worth a lot to me whilst I'm alive and kicking, once I'm not alive and kicking, what that may be worth to someone else are 2 often very different things. For example, I've got in the new garage full of stash, but
the new garage, not the garage now. It's a garage, is it?
Garage.
You have gone up in the
market.
Well done.
There's a box set still in the cellophane of it's from a gaming system, so it's about 48 scale. And it's like, what would have it's like a what if. What would have happened if World War II would have carried on? So the gaming system is called Conflict 47. So they're all what if type pieces. Now, currently, if you were to sell that box set, still in its cellophane wrapping, because it's out of production, you can't get it anymore, it's worth about £700.
Wow.
And I paid, I don't know, 30 for it on eBay. So, and that's worth a lot of money to me as it is, whilst it's still in the cellophane. However, all being well, in 30 odd years' time, it probably won't be worth that much to someone else. You know, there's a lot of that about it. But I think if you get people to look at your stash that know what they're looking at, and they're selling it in the right places, then generally it's going to retain its value, or certainly its original value. Whether it's that, the gold mine book or the gold mine kit remains to be seen, because that's relative. For example, an Edelweiss sold on Veteranus a few months ago for like 100 quid-ish.
Yeah.
That kit will sell all day longer for 400. No problem. So some of it is a bit, you pay your money, you make a choice sort of thing. But if someone knows what they're doing, they're selling it to people who know what they're looking at, then you're pretty much there. Then you're not going to get pulled down too much.
Do you think that we keep hold of kits because we know their value now? Would it be better just to sell them now? Why are you keeping hold of that for 700 quid? Why don't you just sell it now and get rid and use that money to buy more kits or something?
Because we do as humans, don't we?
Yeah, we do.
We collect stuff and we hoard stuff, and we do that as humans.
It's called the thrill of ownership.
Yeah, we do it, don't we? Why are you going to go out and spend £200,000 on a car that essentially is going to cost you £50,000-60,000 a year to maintain and run it, so it doesn't go to shit? When actually you could go to Hyundai and buy a car brand new for £18,000 that will be trouble-free motoring for the next 7 years. It's that.
Yeah, exactly.
It's that thrill of ownership.
If logic ruled the world, Moz, the world would be so much simpler. And for example, stashes wouldn't exist because people wouldn't buy until they were ready to build something else.
Yeah, that's right.
But, why have I got 8 airbrushes? Why?
Because you never know.
Because I want them. But, it's need and want are often two very different things, aren't they?
Yeah,
everything we do is a luxury item, isn't it? Why do you collect Airfix coins?
Well, this whole hobby is a luxury.
It's just the human condition, isn't it?
Correct.
We are. Is it? Yeah, we are hoarders, aren't we? I think a hobby, because when you get into a hobby, it's like you look at the guy who plays golf, and he's got about 40 or 50. He has his main 12 clubs or whatever, but he'll have 40 or 50 in his shed that he's bought.
Yeah,
because he's done really well on it, And I say,
I think this partly to do
I have
with
given away.
Sorry, I think it's partly to do with. I think it's partly to do with the human condition, in the sense that when there is food in primeval times and in primitive times, we ate and we continue to eat because that food can be stored. And I think it's a throwback to that. We live in times of plenty, and we therefore decide that we will hold on to things against the day where maybe these things aren't so plentiful. The idea of collecting and creating a value in things is, for my money anyway, it's one of those things where if it's in your lifetime, you kind of get lucky, but you won't always get lucky. A lot of the time, somebody else will realize the value of what you've collected. That's someone I knew where I used to live collected Clarice Cliff for about 50 years, and then sold the collection that they paid, I suppose, 2,000 or 3,000 quid for. And They sold it for about 35 to 40,000 quid, something like that at all. You know,
That's epic.
But they were then at an age where, you know, yes, they could enjoy it after a fashion, but you know, it's not the same. You don't really get that. You know, you don't need that money at that age. You've earned your money at that point. You know what I mean? And you know, it's that's the point really. You store it in times of plenty against times of need, and that's I think where the psychologically valid point I think I would make about where that comes from. But it's nice to have stuff, isn't it?
It is nice to have stuff, and it's nice to have good stuff. You know, it is, and that's what we do. Certainly, you know, in other parts of the world, potentially in other cultures and stuff, it's not such a big thing because their kind of needs and wants are somewhat different to ours in the Western world.
Yeah. I mean that is true.
You know, it's nice to have these things. I love walking in here and looking at my full paint ranges and my 8 airbrushes and my stash that's worth God knows how much.
Absolutely.
I like it. However, do I need it? Not really. What am I building at the moment? An Airfix starter set. You know what I mean?
Which is the paint and glues in the box, is it, Luke?
No, I'm not doing that, mate. No.
That's a real challenge, that is.
Yeah.
Then again, I did notice some of your boys go on there and they goes, I'm going to build this for the Airfix starter challenge. And it's something that's not even a starter set. I thought that was quite funny.
I mean, I'm not the club secretary anymore. Adam's taken over that, but that will be addressed near the time. So anyone that hasn't read the rules or just chosen to ignore them, well, they're not going to get a prize, are they?
No.
Yeah, exactly.
It's as simple as that. They might be the best build there, but you're not going to win anything.
You could be the only entry that's legal.
We can't win, mate. Admins can't win. No.
Now, the Airfix starter sets, I was just looking through all my stash actually now, the stuff I've got down here, not the stuff in the attic. And I think it's wise that I just start to get rid of it. And I have been getting rid of, as I said, a lot of it in recently. Like I've said, if anybody contacts me and they're struggling and they need a kit, I've got plenty here. And the thing is, my stash has got big, not just because I buy. Remember, every year I buy nearly every release that Airfix put out there, so I can review them. But I also get sent kits, you know, that I'm never going to build. I haven't got enough time in the day to build, you know. And that's the scariest thing is that every kit I have bought, apart from the Airfix ones, obviously, I'm determined I'm going to build it at the time. Open the box, have a look inside, and think it's got a photo etch. Lid goes back on the shelf. You know, those are the kits I need to get rid of.
We've all seen it. And I think it does. And we've all been guilty of it at some point. And you go to any show.
Yeah.
And you will see people that perhaps are distinguished years, and they're spending hundreds of pounds on kits. Well, you don't have to be a master mathematician to figure out. You're not going to live long enough to build that.
Yeah.
You know, or build all of what you've purchased. And then it's not really worth, a lot of the time, it's not going to be worth what you paid for it. You know? So, and since I made a good point about maybe as you get older, it's more about living rather than having all this stuff, because there will come a point, as you said at the beginning, where it's not your stuff anymore. It's just a headache for someone else, basically. That's all it is. And why not spend that money now and go and travel or do whatever? Because you'll get to a point in life where it's too late to do that. You won't have the same experience.
Exactly.
But we still collect stuff. And I'm as guilty of it as anyone else.
Yeah. It is what it is. You know, I said half of these kits, 2/3 of these kits here. So I've got an original German E-boat dating back from the 1980s. I've also got the brand new release from Airfix here. Like, you know what I mean? It's, you know,
so why?
I'm just
Yeah, you have to ask yourself why you're keeping it. Yeah,
why I'm keeping it, and it's that I've got an Airfix 148 high-tech system Spitfire. You know, it's when they bought that 5B. It's on the shelf. What's it doing on the shelf? Never going to build it.
Exactly.
Right.
But it's probably a collector's piece now because it is the one with, you know, the white metal in it. You know, the extra decals. You know, it's it's.
I mean, you take the piss out of me all the time because after Telford's at the end of every year, I basically throw a lot of stuff away, built stuff.
Yeah, I know.
Throw it away and start again the next year because my pleasure from the hobby sounds slightly hypocritical as a display case there full of built models, but
yeah,
my pleasure from the hobby is the process of the build, the process of. So actually, I can't keep these things forever. There might be the odd one or two, which are over there, that I do keep, but in general, I just get rid of them because I can't keep them forever.
Yeah.
And my sort of enjoyment, my hobby, as soon as that's built and put on the shelf, that's the end of it. I'm on to the next, you know. So I don't hold any sort of sentimental attachment to these innate objects, really.
Yeah, I was just saying, you know, it's like upstairs. I've got 6 boxes of stuff that I've built over the years. There's one box full of stuff that I built in the 90s. You know, when I was doing it when I was, you know, in my 20s, and then I kind of stopped for 10 years. Those are the ones I never get rid of because I look at them and they're terrible. They really are. They're enamel painted and the decals are yellowed, but I've kept them because they were like my originals. And nowadays I look at it and people have asked me, I've got one chap who wants the Joe's car from Joe's 90, Mac's car from Joe's 90. And I've built that. It's been put out on display at the model shows. And that's one that he wants. So I'm going to send that to him now because I've done my time with it. But yeah, there's no money in built models, is there? I know I saw you bought one at Telford, didn't you? You bought kit at Telford, didn't you, that was built. But built models, they're not worth jack, really, are they? You know,
I think unless they are of exceptional quality, then there is a market for that. Absolutely. But that market now is shifting away from what we do as scale modelers, if you like, the traditional sort of military or automotive subject. It's kind of shifted away from that into more sort of figures, gaming pieces, that sort of thing. That's where the money in sort of a finished product. That's where the money is. If you look at a decent commission painter, they charge by the millimeter.
Yeah.
And they earn a lot of money from it. But 9/10 of the stuff in that cabinet isn't worth anything. And it's worth something to me, and it goes back to what it's worth to the individual. It's worth something to me because it reminds me of a particular weekend or a particular show or whatever. But actually, when I'm pushing up daisies, that'll all go in a skip. No one cares. Do you know what I mean? Because it's not worth anything to anyone else at all. And it will all go in a skip because it's worth nothing.
I think also, you know, a lot of scale modelers, when they build kits for themselves. So if it looks, you know, I try not to be like disparaging here, and I'm not being disparagingly, but what may look good to me may not look good to somebody else. And that's where the value is. It's like, you know, I've just seen that comment there from Travis when he said that I've had access to a couple of estate collections. 90% of the kits were 60-year-old ropey things that very few would want.
Exactly that, yeah.
And that's it. you know, it is a case of that you know, it's got to be in the eye of the beholder. You see built models on eBay and they look rubbish, but you see people have them on their watch list. Why? Maybe they just want to look at it and think I can do better. I don't know. A built model is a built model, you know, and depending on how much that person puts into it, depends on the look they're going to get from it.
And I think there is constantly a bit, always been the case and continues to be the case. There is a fallacy that surrounds the term commission build. There is a fallacy that surrounds that. So if you build something for your mate, that's not a commission build.
No.
Yeah.
That's you gifting something that you put your heart and soul into a friend. It's not a commission build. If you build something with someone that you work with, that's not a commission build. What a commission build is where you give someone a price,
that's right,
and they pay it, and that's not cheap. So I know a guy who, a few years ago, he commission built. It was just after Tamiya released their 148 F14.
Yeah,
he built probably about 11 or 12 of that particular kit with all the aftermarket and everything, but they were all on commission for a guy that was a massive aviation fan and a massive F14 fan, but he didn't have the skill, the time, the patience, the equipment, whatever, to build them to the standard he wanted to look. So he paid somebody who did have that skill to do it, but they were £3,500 each. But they were well built F14s, you know. So
yeah, that's right. Yeah,
you know, this guy spent in excess of £40,000 to have the collection, which is now on display in his office. But that's a commission build, not I built this for my mate at work. Because we put our heart and soul into it, we spend hours upon hours, and actually no one else gives a shit.
No.
Really. They don't care.
I have seen people who sell their models on eBay. I think Scale Model Hanger put his Sea King up for sale. And I don't know whether he got the money he wanted for it, but
and that's
you know,
the thing, realistic. Because, say, for example, I don't know, a 48 scale aircraft, and you're building it out of the box, weathering, whatever, and you finish it, it looks good. Might even be a gold winner. You don't know. How many hours have you put into that project? 40, 50, more, maybe?
Yeah.
To get it to that standard. Well, if you forget the cost of the kit, forget the cost of the paint, forget the cost of the electricity, forget the cost of everything, just minimum wage per hour that you've spent on that build, and then all of a sudden it becomes really expensive, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It becomes really expensive, and then you have to factor in people's skill and experience. Well, in any other walk of life, if you've got skill and experience, people are willing to pay for it. Aren't they? If you take, I don't know, a welder, a good welder can name their price because of their skill, experience, and everything else. So on and so on. Well, scale modeling doesn't really, there are very few out there that can make a living from commission builds alone.
Yeah,
because of the time it takes and the cost offset of it.
And also, I've noticed that those commission builders can build kits pretty quick. They got their techniques in order and they can build them pretty quick.
But the arse has fallen out.
And I think that's
because everyone that builds their mate thinks they're a commission builder. And so they will naturally go, oh, just give me the money for the kit. Okay, you've just devalued the proper artists that are charging thousands of pounds. You've just devalued what they're doing.
Yeah.
and that's well known. I mean, you look back sort of late 90s, early 2000s. Phil Flory was a commission builder, and he used to build F-18s all the time. He got it down pat. He could knock out 5 or 6 48 scale F-18s in a week because that's all he built, and he made a living from it. He wouldn't be able to do that now because he would say, I don't know, that's going to cost you £2,000 for that kit, for example. Well, some other individual is going to come along and say, oh, well, I'll do it for 200.
Yeah.
And so you have it's the same with real world sculptors for figures. Unfortunately, they produce a sculpt that's probably taken them a long time to do, and they're doing a limited run of that particular figure or set of figures for sale. And then someone in China gets hold of them, recasts them, sell them on AliExpress for £3 a pop. So you've devalued straight away. And art is the same. Any of this stuff, creative industries is the same. Someone will copy it. It won't be as good, but people are willing to compromise on cost. That's it.
As I said, doing commission builds is, how much you charge per hour, £20 an hour, and then you got an average build could probably take you 10 hours. Is somebody going to pay 1,000? 10 hours, 100 hours at £20 an hour. That's £2,000 for a build, isn't it? It just doesn't. It is what it. I'd often think sometimes to sell my built models, on eBay, but that'll be vanity. Do you know what I mean? It'll be pure vanity.
And people
put it on there.
I don't know. Say a 35th scale tank. People build it. They've had their sort of pleasure from the kit and the build process, because that's what they do it for, and then they'll stick it on eBay and they might get 30 quid for it. In no way is that a reflection on the quality of the build or the quality of the work or how long it's taken or whatever. But what it does do, if they get 30 quid back, it's going to go into the pot so they can go and buy another kit or put it towards them, and they do it that way. I know people that do that, but in no way, shape, or form is that a reflection on the quality of that model.
No, it's so different. Anyway, and as I said, I don't think commission builds really. Put it like this: if you really want, say for instance, you're not a scale model builder, right? And I'm not being facetious here. This is how I see it. If you would want a Saracen in 1/35th, because you like the Saracen, but you're not a model builder, you would do what anybody else would do. They would buy the frigging Corgi version in diecast for £35, because that's what Corgi's all about. They would buy a diecast version, and I've seen it. There's magazines out there called Diecast and Farm Machinery, and there are people who buy the combine harvesters, the tanks, the tractors, the balers, and everything in diecast, because they don't want to really build it. They just want the model in because they've driven one, or and that's where diecast comes into it, and that's why they come in these nice presentation boxes. But when with us with scale modeling, to make it out of plastic, and also you can't just give them a model that you've built. You've got to then build a base for it so that it, and make it look like it's in flight. And there's so much that goes into it to make it what it is. So
I think, and only speaking for myself, I don't think I speak for anyone else. The pleasure from the hobby is in the build, the painting, the weathering, and creating something from almost nothing. That is what people do it for. Because if that wasn't their end goal, or that process wasn't that they enjoyed, then you're absolutely right, Maz. They're going by the call you want to put on the shelf.
Yep. Exactly.
But
yeah,
I agree with you on that. I get the pleasure of building something, showing it to people, having it on display. I mean, what happens to it after I pop my clogs. I don't care. I built it. That's it.
Yeah. But the point is that I don't think people are really going to pay somebody a commission build of say £300 or £400 when they could probably get it in die cast. And it look, I know I've got a car up here that somebody's asked me to respray for them into the colour that they had when they were a child. The trouble is trying to get to get the transfers, the stickers to match up the back. I think I've got a way around. I'm going to try and heat them up and put it back on.
I think you make a good point, and in response to that, I would simply say that there are those who require the level of fidelity that you get in a professionally finished model that is considerably beyond that which you will find in a die-cast model. Because in fairness to die-cast models, they look like toys, and that's what they were designed to be. The model has the potential in the hands of a really good builder and an artistic finisher to be a very close replication in scale of the real thing, and that is what some people require.
But they don't pay for
it. Those two things are different, and they won't ever be the same.
No. And quite often people don't want to pay what is a fair price.
Yeah.
That's a big issue for a lot of people that go down that sort of commission route.
Yeah.
And there luckily enough, there exist model builders of all sorts of skill levels who can provide people with likenesses of, let's say, aircraft at all sorts of different levels. You could make the comparison between that and hi-fi. Some people spend £50,000 on a hi-fi system. Other people spend 500. And like as not, the people who spend 500 quid on a hi-fi system derive the same enjoyment from it than the individual who spends 50,000. There exists a variety of different levels of hi-fi that people can use their own determinations to choose from. As it is with hi-fi, so it is with model building and what you're calling commission building, and I appreciate the distinction you make. It's a good one.
Yeah.
That's the thing about free market capitalism, though, isn't it? Anything's only worth as much as the buyers want to pay, regardless of what the seller thinks.
Yeah.
In commission bills, if you're doing a commission build for somebody, I'd rather show them how to build it. If they're not up to skill level or they're not up to confidence level to build it, show them how to do it. That's probably why we've got all these model companies, model groups across the globe and this country that help each other how to do the skills.
Yeah, but there are those who just haven't got the time. Like I was saying the other week, somebody, I'll tell you what it was. Where is it? I was reviewing the Sonic knife at the same time as the Tamiya work stand. So these are all post £100. So these ones are $150. That Tamiya work stand is £105 RRP. And I had to make I put it in the videos quite clearly that they are expensive. And there are those out there that have that ready cash, that the fact that their kids have left home, the mortgage is paid, they have extra funds to do what they want with scale modeling. And you will find that these people who look at a model and say, oh, I'd love to build that, but at the moment, one, I haven't got the time because I'm doing 60 hours a week trying to keep a roof over my head, and I haven't got, because it's, when you think about it, a model kit on average is between 15 and 30 pounds, depending on what you're building. You can pick up that Blitz Kit Panther, or whatever it is, for around $19.99 for 135th tank. Or you can go to the Tamiya one, which is £35.
Yeah.
But with that, then you've got to buy the paints, which are, you're going to need 4 colours for that Panther. So £2.50, that's another tenner. Then you got to, so it all adds up to somebody who just wants to do it as a hobby. And then they think, I'll get somebody to build it for me. And the thing that costs the most money in the build is the time. Do you see what I mean? It's the time that costs money.
I totally agree with you.
I think the value that's attached to most things in life is the skill and expertise of the person doing it.
Yeah.
That's where the value is. So, for example, if I want to convert my garage, that's going to cost me a lot of money. The materials are probably the smallest cost of that total invoice. But what I'm paying for is the skill and expertise and the knowledge of the persons that will do it. That's what I'm paying for. So with a commission, so what I'm not going to do, and I disagree with what Simon said, that's not a commission build if you're showing them how to do it.
No, it's not.
I'm not going to stand there and watch the builder convert my garage. So I know how to do it next time. I'm going to pay somebody who can produce a product the way I want it produced. And then I'm not interested in how they do it. And I always go back to the guy that bought the F14s. He had no interest in how the builder was achieved for not being a grey paint. He didn't give a toss how that was achieved. He didn't want to sit down with the person building it and learn how to do it. What he wanted was every squadron in every marking of that particular aircraft, and he was willing to pay someone to do it. If someone said to me, build a 35th scale Panther, and at the same time they said to Uncle Night Shift, build a 35th scale Panther and I'll pay you to do it, well, he's going to charge a lot more money than I am. Not that I do commissions, but he's going to charge a lot more money. But the end product is going to be far, far superior to what I do. So therefore, it's worth every penny to the individual buyer.
Yeah.
And that's what a commission build is.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I think that's a good show.
Some people might not want to take money off people. And if they
commission builds.
There's not commission build then. That's the argument, Simon.
It's just gifting a kit that you built to somebody else.
Yeah.
Commission build is it involves commitment for work.
But it's not a commission build. It's because they perhaps don't have the skill or the tools or whatever, but they want a particular thing. But it's not a commission build, it's a gift.
Yeah.
I think my time.
Exactly.
I think what Simon's getting at is if somebody comes to you and says, you build this for me, then you might say, oh, how much is it? Oh, just give me a tenner or something. That's still them paying you to do a job for them.
That's
it's
the
just
commission.
not very much.
I've done several of
So
those.
it's still technically commission.
I mean, even if they're just covering your paint and, purchase the kit, it's not really a commission build if you're not making any profit out of it, but you are getting paid for it.
It's like saying, right, then put it this right, say you see a so say you go to an art gallery and you see a picture of a painting of your town and you buy it at that price, okay?
Yeah.
Lovely. Okay, and then that's nice because there's a picture of in that picture is your house, okay? You took it off the wall, you bought it, that's it. And in a commission, because you haven't asked that artist to do that. Exactly. But if you specifically say to somebody, I want you to, here's a kit, how much would you charge me to build this kit up in this scheme? Here's the extra decals for it. I haven't got the paints, but how much and you say, right, okay. If he's your friend, you might say, I'll tell you what, I'll enjoy the build anyway. Give me 70, 80 quid. Yep. I get that. That you could say that is a commission build.
Yeah.
But if you don't know the person, and then you know, and you look at the time, and there's a subject matter you don't really like doing, but you can do them.
Yeah.
You're going to charge him per the hour, surely.
Yeah.
Then that will be like 200 to 300 quid.
Or you give them a fixed price.
Yeah.
Or whatever it may be. And then if you think it's going to take you, I don't know, 30 hours, you give them a fixed price. They agree the price to have it done in the way they want to do it. If it takes you 50 hours when you thought it would take you 30, well, that's on you.
Yeah.
You misunderstood the involvement that it's going to take to get it to a standard that they want.
Yeah.
That's the nature of any business. You know, sometimes someone will give you a quote, for example. I know this a lot because this has the money pit. So someone will give you a quote, and quite often they'll give you like a day rate rather than an hourly rate. And then if it takes them more than a day, well, that's on them because they've quoted at a day rate and said it's going to take 3 days.
Yeah.
It is what it is. If it takes them 3.5 or 4, that's kind of on them. They've misquoted.
Yeah. I think that a lot of the reason, if somebody said to me, "Oh, well, can you do this for me?" and the reason I take it on, and then I've done, I think I've just 5 call it 5 commission builds. People who know what I've done, can you build it for me? And I'll give them a price. But I also know that I've undervalued my time slightly, but it's because I know it's going to be a subject matter that I'm going to enjoy building. And I tend to say yes to those ones, and to those who say, "Oh, can you do me this kit that doesn't tickle my fancy at all?" I probably would say no to them because it's something that don't interest me, if you see what I mean. But at the end of the day, commission. I think Luke is right in saying that those who say they do commission builds, they charge a tenner for something to build because that isn't commission. Commission builds is making a living out of it. That's what it should be. I think you know, and don't get me wrong.
There's
there
a
are
lot
people
of unemployed artists.
It's a business deal.
Yeah.
That's the difference, isn't it? It's a business deal.
Yes.
Business deal. If you make money out of it, it's a business deal. If you don't make money out of it, it's still a hobby.
Yeah. And also, as a taxman, you've done it as well.
Yeah, I was just going to say, how many people do we all know that be like, "Oh, I've done a commission." I don't know whether they think it carries some sort of kudos or whatever. I've done a commission build, and it's told the taxman.
Yeah.
If you're taking money off people for your time and for something you're doing, then that's gainful employment. Tell the taxman, but they fucking don't.
Yeah. But yeah. I think that's pretty much. I do the occasional commissions in my retirement for haulage firms. I probably get 6 inquiries a month of companies who have seen my work. Once they hear the price, I probably actually build 2 a year. And that's it. Exactly. That is commission build.
So if anyone's seen Ian's work, if a haulage firm commissions Ian to build one of their vehicles, it is going to be built to a professional high standard. Well, that attracts a premium price, and Ian is worth every single penny because he's put in decades of experience, knowledge, skill, all that into that build. Well, a haulage firm is likely to pay that once or twice, 3 times a year, maybe, to have it in their depot or their office or whatever. But Joe Bloggs down the road who just wants a heavy Stobart truck and the 60 quid, and he wants someone to build it for 80.
Yeah.
No. More for the people that do that.
Then they get an average build.
Yeah. At best.
Average money, average build.
It's the same with everything in life, isn't it?
You can get married. So, I've seen it. I've seen it in the amount of times I get sent messages from charities saying, "Hi, can you come and do a gig for us? You can give out your business card." Well, I can give out my business card on the side of a street. It's the same with wedding fairs. I think wedding fairs are a con. They want me to pay £500 to put a stall up, show off me rig, show off me lights, and then wedding people come around saying, "Oh, what music will you play?" And I can bang out, "Set Me Free" by Entrance or whatever.
What a classic.
I could do that, and then I don't advertise my work. Yeah, I do sometimes, but I don't advertise because my business now is word of mouth. Absolute word of mouth. I'm doing pub quizzes. I'm doing pub quizzes now. I've already had 5 pubs say, "Can you come and do the energy you bring to a pub quiz, the way you have a laugh, you're very funny, you're very quick, blah blah blah. We want you at our pub." And then so they come in, and that's what it is. People film me doing it, and they go, "We want you at our pub." So at the moment, that's becoming a bit of trying to work out how to do all this. But I've never had to, I had Google ads at the beginning, but when they see what I do, I don't need to go to a wedding fair where when the father's walking around. Yeah, and also, and I've turned down work.
And Joff is bang on the money. Pay average money, you get average result.
It's true.
Yeah. Don't get me wrong. If you're going to say that about me, if I've got friends and family who want a disco for their birthday, I'll knock 150 quid off the top end of the price straight away.
Yeah.
But then, see, that's not commission then, is it? I'm doing it for friends and family a bit cheaper. Yeah. But they're the ones, it's my friends and family that know me, who know other, they on Facebook, for instance, they say, I need a DJ for such and such. They're the guys who will recommend me in Facebook every single time. So you get a postcode, 8 or 9. That's the way I do it.
It's a form of advertising, isn't it, Moss? It's what you call a loss leader, actually, because if you don't make huge amounts of money on it, you're still getting exposure.
And what is bang on there, isn't it? Exposure doesn't feed the kids. Correct. It doesn't. You can have as much exposure as you want. It ain't going to put food on the table or pay your mortgage. It's not going to do it.
Yeah, that's it. And so if you see a scale modeler and if you're not a scale modeler and you see their work on, and I think that's is where a lot of people get business on Instagram and stuff, is they post their work online. And then people say, "Oh, can you build that for me?" I had it with that lifeboat, that starter set lifeboat. And the guy said, "I love what you did with the Exmouth lifeboat. Can you build me one?" And I replied back saying, "Mate, it's a starter set. If you want me to build one, it will be probably 10 times the price of what that starter set would be to build it yourself with all the paints that included." Never got back to me.
No, exactly. But, exactly the same thing, because I built the interior and stuff on that. Yeah. Exactly the same thing. Probably 5 or 6 people had seen the interior coming together. Can you do that for me? Well, yeah. It's going to cost this much. Yeah, but the kit's only £20. Yeah, but I'm not building it like the kit. So either you pay what it is, and I might consider doing it, or I'm not going to do it. It's as simple as that.
If you want to know an example, the only way I can to say it is that the last 4 or 5 builds I've done, and I haven't put them all on YouTube. Some of them I don't think they're worth it, but that 148 tank that I've just finished building this week, the Crusader, this one here, right? And I've weathered it and everything. I've got 8.5 hours of footage. 8.5 hours of footage building that kit, and that includes cleaning up the parts.
It's surprising how quickly it builds up, isn't it? The amount of hours of time put into it.
I mean, I would suggest I don't know for definite because I don't tend to keep a log. Maybe I should. Little history, I agree with that completely. Never do out for nouns. I agree with that. But so that Airfix starter set that I'm currently building, which is the Land Rover, the Series 1 pickup, I did that in
half an hour, mate.
Yeah, but it won't look like mine. But but I would estimate that's going to take me, by the time I've done the base and everything else, probably between 40 and 50 hours.
Really?
Yeah.
What are you doing? Are you licking it so it goes together? No, but yeah, I get what you're saying.
But you could also do it in an hour.
Yeah.
But it's not going to be the same. And that's where people fall down. You could have someone fit some windows and they could charge you $5,000 or whatever. Or you could have someone fit some windows and it's going to charge you $25,000. I would argue that the $25,000 ones are going to firstly look better and they probably are going to be better.
Yeah.
And sometimes you have to make compromises. I would love to drive a Lamborghini. However, I can't afford a Lamborghini, so I drive a fucking Hyundai. Do you know what I mean? Because you live to your means. It's just life. Anyway.
Yeah. And also, I think skills is what you pay for. Same with discos. You've got these kids out there with a set of JBL speakers. And some lasers they've got off Temu. But I've been doing it. I think Little History will agree with me. We've been doing it for 30, 40 years. And you've got to know how to play the room.
Even the kit. So I could probably learn to muddle through the kit in a week or fortnight or whatever. So I turn up to do the gig with your kit. It is not going to be the same as if you did it. Is it?
No,
because your skill lies in your experience, your expertise, which I don't have. So therefore, it's not going to be the same thing. So I would have to charge less than you would charge to do the same thing, but you'd be better at it.
Luke, in that analogy, applies to everything.
Everything.
Yeah.
I mean, for instance, my job, right? If you get a taxi driver who's been doing the job for 2 days, he's going to charge more money to the customer to get from A to B than I will.
Exactly. Because
you know the shortest route. And the easiest way to get there.
It's the same in everything. I mean,
it's exactly the same.
It's like in my job, although I've just got a new job, but the people that have now employed me with the new job are willing to pay because they're paying for knowledge, experience, and all that stuff. But it's like every workplace now, most workplaces, I think, if they've got over a certain number of employees, they have to have a first aider, don't they?
Yeah.
Who's done a 4-day first aid at work course. And they just do it as like a secondary role, don't they, to their main job. That's what they do. Okay. Well, trust me, if you're having a heart attack, you want a paramedic to turn up. You don't want a first aid at work to turn up because your chances of survival are greatly improved if you've got someone there who knows a lot more than the person that's done a 4-day course and been given a whistle. They just know more, but that comes at a cost. So these companies and events, people that put on events, if they want a paramedic there, they've got to pay.
Yeah.
Or they can cut a corner and have a first aider there for a lot less money, but the end result won't be the same.
Yeah.
It won't be the same.
Yeah.
Same in everything.
The chances of the first aider making the patient last longer is high, but
Yeah, I believe I've never done a first aid course, but I believe the first thing they teach is call for help. Guess who the help is?
Well, the first thing you do is you're told to either tell somebody to ring $999.
Yeah, cool for help.
Yourself. Yeah. That's the first thing you're told to do.
Yeah. The help costs money. That's just the way it is.
Plus, they change the way you administer first aid virtually every 10 years. So if anyone hasn't done a first aid refresher in the last 10 years, they're doing it wrong.
Tiv's there. Hi, Tiv. Nice to see you on the chat. I've only been in the hobby for 2-ish years. My work won't be as good as any of yours, but seeing the progress of my models is great motivation. I don't think I could ever pay someone to build one. Yeah, I think when we're talking about paying for models, is that people who don't build models who would like us to build it for them. But yeah, I think that your next build will be your best build every single time. Yeah. Unless you get to a stage like I am, and some builds just like end up being on the shelf because you lose all wheels.
I thought you were going to say, if you get to the stage like I am, where every build's your best build.
Listen. I don't know what
maybe you will, but somebody else.
I just cannot get back on the bench to get this fucking finished. I really can't. It's been all I've got to do is the undercarriage. That's it, and put the decals on. I just haven't got the wheels. It's just there at the minute, but it will be done. So
I bet that kit comes to life at night when you go to bed, Moss, but it can't find the box.
Yeah, that's right. It's nearly done. It's seriously nearly done. I just haven't at the moment,
as soon as I finish my Airfix Land Rover, I'm going to start my 109 before I go back to gain employment.
Yeah.
So, that might give you a bit of a nudge to get it over the line.
Yeah. I wish I could do with that.
Anyway, like I said, there are things, building models is an expensive game. I know it shouldn't be expensive, but it's expensive on how much you want to pay at the end of the day. Simple as.
It is.
Right.
Sorry, Moz. If you compare it to other hobbies, I know people say, oh, it's expensive. But if you compare it to other hobbies, actually, for the time and everything else for the outlay, it's relatively cheap. It is.
It's cheaper than going out on the drink, Luke.
Say again?
It's cheaper than going out on the drink every weekend.
Absolutely. I mean, obviously, when I moved house, and I would recommend anyone to do it, insure your model stash and paints and everything separately to your normal contents insurance. And I kind of worked out a figure, contacted the insurance company, said it's going to be this much. But when I worked out that figure, and I've been doing this for 13 years, maybe 14 years. Yeah. When I worked out that figure over that time, it's probably less than $3,000 a year. Well, a Premiership season ticket would probably cost me more than that. If I played golf, it would cost me a lot more than that. If I went out drinking every weekend, it would cost me a lot more than that. So actually, although no one goes out, do they, and drops £25,000 on a model set. No one does that. It's all accumulated over time. But you could buy a kit for £20, £30 that might occupy your time for 50, 60 hours. Were you trying to equate that to any other hobby? 50 pence an hour.
Yeah.
It's almost impossible to find another hobby that provides you that level of enjoyment for the outlay.
Correct.
Yeah, no, I was just saying that, you make your hobbies as expensive or as cheap as you want. You don't have to buy the latest kit. You can wait 2 months and it'll be half price on the Airfix website. Do you know what I mean? And vice versa.
With any hobby, like people do running. I used to do running till my knees gave up. But I can run down the road now in my slippers. I could. Or I could go out and spend £300-400 on a pair of running shoes.
Yeah.
I'm still doing the same thing, really. I'm running down the road. It's all relative, and some of that is down to people's disposable income. Some of that is down to how much they're willing to invest in whatever it may be. and so on. But
how often would you use those 300, 400 pound pair of trainers?
Well, I used to run every day. But you know, there's members in our club that literally sit in front of the TV with a dinner tray and put together 70-second scale aircraft or whatever. It doesn't cost them a great deal of money.
Yeah.
But they're still doing the hobby. They're not all idiots like us that go out and spend hundreds of pounds on the right fucking light, paint ranges. They don't do that.
You've just hitched on something there, which is quite important, because I think companies like Airfix, Revell, their bread and butter is the kid at home.
Absolutely.
The kid on the table watching the telly. It's not like us who spend 60, 70 quid on a kit and there are £100 worth of tools and stuff to, you know, their bread and butter is
differ. I beg to differ, sir.
Capitalise on the niche of the hobby, if you like. Sort of maybe 5-10% of people that do it. So, for example, I messaged Ben the other day because I want to build a Type 45 in 350 scale, and I was asking him which is the better kit, the Airfix one or the Trumpeter one. And I wanted some advice from someone that builds ships.
Yeah.
But then when I started to look at the aftermarket, it's more than the cost of the kit.
Of course it is.
Yeah.
However, you're absolutely right, Joffrey. Most people that build models won't put all the PE on it. They won't do all that, and they won't spend 2-3 times the cost of the kit in the aftermarket to go with it. They won't do that. But those manufacturers that are making the aftermarket, they're after idiots like me. That's what they're after.
Yeah.
But Airfix, Revell, Tamiya, and all the sort of mainstream manufacturers, they want the people who are going to build a kit on a Sunday afternoon. That's what they want.
Yeah. Here's one for you all then. If you give all 9 of us here a basic starter kit from Airfix or anywhere Revell, whatever, a basic starter kit, and said build it all, you'd all build it in a different way. You'd all have the same model at the end of the day, but it'd be all built in a different way.
You're totally right.
Well, that's
because we all have skill sets and different skill levels and different ways we enjoy to put stuff together. It's just that's the way it is.
Somebody might add an extra a decal or add a bit of brass etch to it or paint it in a different way.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, it's all the same kit at the end of the day.
Everyone will do it differently, and that is the benefit of the hobby.
Exactly.
Because no one's doing it right, no one's doing it wrong. If they're enjoying what they're doing, and if that means you're brush painting an Airfix starter kit with a paints that come in the box, you're still doing it right. Would I do it that way? Absolutely not. Those paints are going straight in the bin. I'm still enjoying what I'm doing as the person who's using the paints out of the box on a Sunday afternoon in front of the telly. They're still enjoying the process, so they're doing it right.
Well,
and Tiffany, if you want to build an Airfix starter set, come and join Black Rifle Model Works. Get involved in the group build because that's what we're doing, and you can win a prize.
Yeah. By the way, folks, Ultimate Modeling Products has sent me their acrylic gold air and brush thinner. Now, I thought about it. Well, I can't really use this stuff because I don't use acrylics. I'm a lacquer paint guy. But I grabbed some of the Airfix Gen 3 paints. 50-50. Thank me later.
Yes, it's fantastic stuff.
Thank me later.
Although X and XF from Tamiya aren't true acrylics, they're solvent based.
Yeah.
Film them with that stuff.
Yeah.
And thank Moz later.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
I'm going to do a video on it. I've just used their acrylic.
And they're cleaner. I know you don't.
Can I just ask, Moss? Can you use stuff with a brush?
What? Can you use what?
Stuff with a brush?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thins it down 50-50, mate. He sprays
I
lovely.
have horrendous problems at the moment with
cautious with the cleaner.
Paint off.
If you're using a synthetic brush, be cautious with the cleaner, because I don't think it would give massive longevity to a brush, because it's great for an airbrush. It's second to none, but they're thinner. Absolutely. If you're brush painting, I use it all the time with Model Color, Model Air. If I'm brush painting, and I use Ultimate Thinner all the time.
Because I'm gonna really upset Luke now, because I use a lot of Humbrol enamel paints. I used to use this stuff, but you can't use it to thin the top coat down because it just takes the bottom layer of paint off. And it's only started doing it in the last year. So now I've started using the Humbrol stuff, which does work. Works fine.
So but that's enamel. We're talking about acrylic here,
enamel,
mate.
Yeah, acrylic.
I do use.
This is for acrylic. This is for acrylic.
It's only for acrylic.
Only for acrylic.
Right.
I've just done a video of their cleaner. Now I had a airbrush that had LP lacquer paint in it, and it works. Cleans up lovely. So I've done a video on that just to show people, because this blowing through all the time just does my head in. You know, if you've got paint left in the pot, in your airbrush cap pot, tip it back into the bottle, give it a clean out get as much of that paint out with a tissue, pour some of this in, rub around with a brush. You know, exactly. Stop trying to blow paint through all the time with it mixed. Just get as clean as you can. Then put this in, clean around, empty it, then blow it through. The last thing you do is blow it through with some of this. Then I put IPA in it, blow through that, leave it in the IPA in the cup, then, and that's it clean. That's how I do it. But I thought this was really good stuff as well. As I said, I'm not going to lie. I love this stuff, Brush Magic. I think, you know, I've left paint in a airbrush before and just dried, and I've left this in there 15 minutes and it clears it through. I've not done it with this one yet, but I think this may be my new go-to for clearing out my airbrush. I said, I haven't opened up my airbrush in 6 months. I haven't stripped it down at all. I've just cleaned it after every use. So, yeah. Anyways. Right, folks, I want to call it a night now. I know it's a bit early, but we don't have to go until 10 for no reason. But we've discussed quite a bit tonight. I'm sorry that the discussion is a little bit more morbid at the beginning, but sometimes you have to talk about these things. I've said that, you know, we're current affairs, this lot, you know, this thing. So things happen, and you know, when with the state of the world and everything at the moment, it's you know, we have these discussions sometimes on here, and if you don't want to watch it, you just come back next week and we'll talk about something even funnier or something like that on, you know, how shit model craft kits are or something like that. You know, but anyway, just big thanks to everyone that's joined in tonight. We've got Simon there, Luke, thanks for coming back for this one, Luke. I know you're not really trying to kick off social a bit, but it's nice to see you. Mike there, we've got Dinsan, John, Barry, John Alec. He was there, but he's his chair now. And Brett, and also Ben, who's had awful internet problems tonight. But anyways, we'll see you again next month. We'll find a happier topic next week. But thanks for watching, and we'll see you next week. Take care, everyone, and good night. Bye-bye.